Okay, finally, I'm up and running. Okay. Oh boy, that was tough. That was tough. Having constantly having technical issues with YouTube and XSplit talking to each other. It's really a bit of a hassle. Um, anyway, let me just show you what we're talking about today. Okay. We're going to be talking about ICE killed an unarmed dad, which is pretty freaking bad. Then we're going to talk about Trump and how he's like a broken clock. And we're going to be talking about HFC and diabetes. And then Trump now supports Ukraine, but who gives a damn? And tourism collapse across the United States. Okay, let's talk about the dad who was killed. So let's do that. Let's start with that. Okay. This is out of roughly around it's Chicago, Illinois. I'm not sure if it's Chicago or a suburb of Chicago, but this is basically what happened. Let me just show it to you. Okay, and let's play it.
Because he's brown, because maybe he looked.
Canisters on the ground.
Now, if you notice the ICE officials, they have their face covered. They have no identification. So these are like this is kind of like how the brown shirts operated in Nazi Germany. So these are basically thugs masquerading as officials of the United States government. True officials of the United States government would not be nameless, faceless, numberless, and you couldn't know who it is that's beating you up. Even the police have that. They have a badge. They have a badge number. You ask them their name, they'll tell you their name. These guys, they don't operate under those kinds of rules. Where they got these rules, your guess is as good as mine. But in this one here.
As the car drives away, the agent on the driver's side can no longer be seen in this video. In a different surveillance video, 2 gunshots can be heard as the vehicle drives away. In a statement, DHS said the driver, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, struck one of the officers and dragged them as he drove away. That officer then fired his weapon, hitting Villegas Gonzalez.
The driver, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, a single father of 2 who just dropped his children off at school, tragically died in a local hospital after being shot by one of the ICE agents conducting the traffic stop.
Now, what is really disgusting about this is let me come back here, okay. What's really disgusting about this is the lack of outrage by the press and at least going by how the press reports it of people. Back in the Vietnam War era, there was a incident at Kent State University in Ohio, and you should Google that sometime. Kent State massacre, and in that incident, National Guard troops fired on and killed a number of students at Kent State who were protesting the war. And that was not only national news. People were outraged. It was a huge reaction by the political establishment and by the press and by people. It affected. It really affected the politics of the time. And here we have a man killed, unarmed, innocent. He was just dropping his kids off, and ICE decides to kill him. And it's just it's disgusting that a person going about his life doing nothing out of the ordinary, doing what normal people do all over the country, ends up dead because of ICE's intolerance, their hate, their cruelty, their incompetence, lack of training, and and their strong-arm, thuggish, Nazi-like tactics. Now, why do I say that? Well, it's because those masks and the fact that they don't have numbers, they don't have any means of identification. That is I'm sorry, that's just plain wrong. And we shouldn't be operating like that in this country. But we are. That's our life today. Until something happens that changes it, until people start getting a little upset and start voting for people who are not authoritarian leaning, like Trump and like the Republican Party is. The Republican Party right now, they're akin to the Nazi Party in Germany. They're akin to the Fascist Party in Italy. Why? Because they're not protesting it. They're going along with Trump. And that's what happened in Germany. When Hitler was brought in as chancellor, there's a lot of politicians that thought that, hey, we could manage this guy, we could handle him. Well, but instead they all folded and they just gave in to him, and he ended up being a dictator. And that's why people are afraid that we're losing our democracy here in this country, because our politicians are not fighting back. Chuck Schumer, he just folds all the time. This man has the spine of a jellyfish, and the other Democratic leadership that right now in the House and the Senate is not any better. There's really very little pushback to the Republicans. They're not out there really explaining what it is that the Republicans are doing wrong. They're not fighting. They it's like and I'm not sure it's because they not sure why that's the case. Part of it, I think, is just they don't know how to fight, because these people that are in decision-making positions in the Democratic Party, they're not fighters. They never were. They don't know how. They don't have the instincts of a fighter. They have the instincts of compromisers and deal makers. They know how to do with other people who are deal makers. But Republicans don't make deals. Republicans don't make they don't make deals that they don't renege on and alter after the fact. That's what they do, and so you can't make deals with the Republicans. Because they don't have any honor or truth to them. But the Democrats, they keep on falling into their trap. It's just, it's silly. It's like, they fucked you over last time. What makes you think they're going to do any different this time? But Chuck Schumer will be in there making a deal, and and like before, he'll be tricked, and the Republicans will renege on the deal, at least on their end of it. They'll expect Democrats to to hold up their end of the deal, but the Republicans won't hold up their side, and it's pretty sick. But let's talk about one thing which Trump is doing right. And that almost makes me gag a bit to say that he's doing something right. But, like there's the old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. But Trump is doing something that I actually strongly agree with. And here's what it is. I have type 2 diabetes. Okay? And I didn't know anything about it until after I got it. And I've done a lot of research on it now, and now I know how I got it and why I got it. And I got it because I drank a lot of Coca-Cola and other soft drinks. And in the 1970s, late 60s, early 70s, the United States switched over from regular sugar, sucrose, which is table sugar, over to HFC, high fructose corn syrup, which is really half glucose. And for diabetics, there's a measure called the glycemic index. The glycemic index is an index of how fast, when you consume something, how fast what you consume gets transferred or gets absorbed into your body as glucose, blood sugar. And it turns out that sucrose, regular table sugar, has nothing to do with diabetes. Now, once you have diabetes, then you have to watch all your carbohydrates, all your sugars, and all, yeah, you have to. But in terms of getting it, no. Starches and sugar has nothing to do with getting diabetes. Nothing, not at all. Only one thing will give you diabetes, and that is glucose, or HFC, high fructose corn syrup. Now, how do I know that? Am I making that up? No. I did my research, and you could do it yourself. You could Google this stuff. It's pretty easy. In 1960, only about 1 to 2% of people in the United States had diabetes, and that included elderly people. People who were 70 years old, only about 1 to 2% of them had diabetes. Well, then we switched over to from using regular sucrose, regular table sugar, in our soda pop and other things that we drank and consumed that were industrially made, because obviously we still use table sugar at home. So when you're making a cake at home, you use table sugar, but not the big manufacturers like Sara Lee and so forth. There they went and switched over to HFC. And here's the thing. Here's the statistic that I found. Remember I said that in 1960 only 1 or 2% had diabetes? And that means both younger people and older people. Well, now 30% of elderly people and even younger people have diabetes. If you're consuming HFC, then you have about a 1 in 3 chance of getting diabetes, which is a lot. So there's millions and millions of people, tens of millions of people in the United States that have diabetes that wouldn't have it if HFC was not the sugar of the land right now. It's different. Now, remember what I said about glycemic index? Well, here's the thing. The glycemic index of sugar, regular table sugar, is 60 or 62, which is relatively high, not too high. Actually, potatoes have actually a higher glycemic index, which is real interesting. But a glycemic index of HFC is like 96. Now, what is that measuring it against? The glycemic index goes from 0 to 100. Okay? At 100, that's the glycemic index of pure glucose, which is blood sugar. What that means is that let's say you had a glass of glucose and you just drank it. Your body does not digest it. It just goes into the stomach, and as soon as it can get absorbed, it's absorbed. And it's that rate of absorption that's measuring. So glucose is 100%. Glucose is a glycemic index of 100. HFC is a little bit less. HFC is just merely a mixture of glucose and fructose. Okay. Now, sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's the same as sucrose," because sucrose has actually glucose and glucose in it. Yes, but it's a disaccharide. And a disaccharide, what that means is that it's 2 sugar molecules, 2 glucose molecules tied together. They're not glucose, it's sucrose. And for the sucrose to release its parts as glucose, it has to get what's called digested. And that takes a bit of time in the gut. Even to just do that little bond break takes a little bit, and that little effort slows down the digestion, slows down the absorption of it, and so you end up with a glycemic index of 61 or 62. And that's why people back then, people back in the 40s, 50s, they ate a lot of sugar. They ate donuts and cakes and soda pop and all that. They had all kinds of sugary sweets back then. But they did not get diabetes because they were eating normal foods. HFC is not a normal food. Glucose is not food. Glucose, you use glucose inside your body, but you should not be drinking. You not be consuming it directly. if you consume it directly, that will cause diabetes eventually. You you may get it right away, but the odds are you'll get it eventually. And so, I've been struggling with. When I learned it, I've been struggling with it. I found out I had diabetes about, I don't know, about 10, 11 years ago now, maybe 12. And I've not had any HFC since then. I drink Coke, but it's Diet Coke. But I'll have cakes and all that. But if I have any cakes, I make them, and they're made with sugar. And I have no problem with it because I know what the glycemic index is, and my A1C is fairly good. I'm right now I'm what's called a borderline diabetic. My A1C is like 6.3, 6.4. Just borderline. If you get it under 6, you're not diabetic anymore. Anyway, but what Trump is doing, I had to give that as a little preamble to what Trump is doing. Trump is actually trying to get HFC in our foods replaced with sugar. And wow, that's pretty cool. And people in Iowa are pissed off about that because HFC is high fructose corn syrup, and it's manufactured from corn. So the corn lobby is really strong, and they're the ones that push that. Anyway, but like I said, that's the one thing that Trump is doing that I actually agree with. So, like I said, a broken clock will be right twice a day. So even Trump has one thing. It's just one. It's not a big thing. It's not a big deal. There's so many other things where he's really screwing up on a monumental scale that'll be in the history books and studied for centuries, probably, not just mere decades. Okay, let's see what else. Okay. Yeah, Trump now supports Ukraine, but who cares? Yeah, that's rather interesting. One thing that's going on is let me just play this for you a little bit. By the way, this is Belle of the Ranch. I like her. She's gives a pretty straight reporting of things.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. So today, we're going to talk about Trump's about-face on Ukraine and Russia. About a week ago, we talked about Republican Representative Michael McCall of Texas, indicating he thought Trump was getting tired of Putin playing him. He certainly seemed to believe that Trump was starting to wake up to how many of Putin's compliments were veiled insults, and how Putin's actions were undermining Trump. 1 week later, Trump posted to social media, quote, "After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time..."
Okay, so that is a very much of a about face from what he was talking about before, where he was really before he was really kind of spouting Putin's line and saying Ukraine didn't have the cards and stuff like that. But what's interesting, what I find very interesting is, Putin, he does this about face, okay, and maybe people here in the United States care what Trump says. But what's interesting is that the people in Europe don't give a fuck. He's already told them that he's not going to support them. If there's a war, the United States is not going to live up to its treaty obligations. The United States is not going to help. He's already told them that. And so they're not relying on the United States. And what's interesting, like if you look at, there's the two incidents that happened recently in about Poland. There was the drones coming in over Poland, and how the Polish responded to that, and then they closed their border with Belarus, which I believe they just opened back up again. But and then there's the aerial incursions by the jets into Lithuania. And these are major issues, major events in Europe. But what's interesting is that they didn't give a damn what the United States was saying. There was some announcement from the White House or from the State Department. There's no. There's the press over there was interested, from what I gather, but the governments, France and Germany and England and Sweden, Poland, they didn't make any remarks about what Trump was saying. I mean, it used to be, if there was some tension in Europe going on, like something like with Russia and all that, it used to be that it would be the United States would be stepping to the fore, taking the making the statements and setting the position and policy for the entire alliance. Not now. Germany and Poland, these guys, they're not worried about what we're going to do. So, like for instance, like with Poland, when they shut the border with Belarus, we have troops. We have like 10,000 troops in Poland, something like that. Poland did not consult or even inform the United States of what it was doing. The United States was not part of the discussion. They weren't part of the thought process. They didn't give a fuck what the United States did because they're expecting us to do nothing. Because Trump has indicated that, and the United States follows what Trump does. We've basically allowed him to be, to make himself king. Now the Congress just rolls over and plays dead. By the way, all the things that Trump is doing, with firing people through Doge or raising tariffs, willy-nilly, creating ICE. All this stuff is being done carte blanche without any input from Congress. Congress is stepping back. Back in the 1920s when they created the FBI, Congress actually had to authorize the creation of the FBI. Now, Congress is, now ICE is fully funded with billions and billions of dollars. It's now funded more than the FBI is funded. What's going on there? But that's because the Republican Congress has basically abdicated, and now they're just a rubber stamp body for whatever Trump wants, and that's what we have in our country right now. I don't think it'll last. I think it'll change, but I'm an inherent optimist. What can I say? Okay, let's take a look at the next thing we're going to be looking at. Oh yeah, tourism collapse in the United States. You might be aware of the tourism collapse that's going. You may have heard some things about it. One is of course, the Canadian boycott of the United States. So the places where the Canadians tended to go down for their vacations, being severely hit. Biggest of that is Florida. That's getting hit real bad. The only reason why any Canadians come down is to sell their condos. They're really abandoning Florida. But also Las Vegas is getting hit seriously. A lot of Canadians would like to go down to Las Vegas. Well, they're not doing that anymore. If you're going to gamble, you don't need to go to Las Vegas to gamble. You can do that anywhere. So that's a big deal. But beyond that, Trump, in his infinite wisdom, has also put a $250 visa fee on every visa. So that means a young family with 2 kids in Paris, France, coming to Disney World, they'll have to spend an extra $1,000 just for the pleasure of coming into the United States. And that's an unrefundable visa fee. And it's as simple as that. And plus, the people in Europe, they're really PO'd at Trump for all the insults that he's had, the way he's handling the tariffs and everything else. The fact that he's abandoned Article 5 of NATO, and he's not going to honor the NATO treaty, NATO alliance. That shows him as a really bad piece of work. By the way, just to let you know, this is something that I was curious about about a month ago or so. So I did get online, I looked it up. I was wondering, when did the United States renege on treaties? And now when I talk about that question, I am removing from that all the treaties that we had with the Native Americans and the Indians. I'm taking those out of the question because with them, it's I think it's the reverse. I think it's the flip. It's like, how many of those treaties did we honor? And I think it's precious few. But when it comes to the rest of the world, we honored every single treaty that we've had. It's not like we would sign a treaty and then a year or two later or whatever we would just say, we don't like it, and just blow it off. I mean, if we ended a treaty, we would do it formally. We wouldn't just simply not show up. And so we've had 250 years, 240 years of being an honorable, trustworthy nation. When the United States signed an agreement, signed a treaty, we treated it like it was law. We didn't renege on it. We had honor. And Trump is a man without honor. He has no honor. I mean, like for instance, like he in 2018, he actually negotiated, worked out a trade agreement with Canada. And and along comes his second term here, and the first thing he does is he cancels it. What good is a guy if he doesn't have his own word? So the guy is of no honor at all. And now we've walked away from the NATO treaty, and the people in Europe are, they're like, they're not very happy with us. But this, I was going to say they're done with us. I think that's a bit too strong. They're not done with us, but they're PO'd with us. I'll tell you that. Spain and Portugal have canceled the F-35s. Canada they haven't canceled the F-35, but it's hanging by a thread. And I think Canada will cancel the F-35 agreement. I think they're hoping against hope that Trump would change his tune a little bit and ameliorate some of his rhetoric and some of his behavior. But asking Trump to be to play nicer that's a losing gambit. And so that's what's going on in Europe too. They're also reviewing their F-35 purchases. But beyond that, because the countries in Europe are really ramping up their defense spending to 3, 4, 5% of GDP, they're going to be developing their military-industrial complex, and they're not going to want to buy our stuff. So Trump is basically, he basically has destroyed a very lucrative arms market for us, for the United States. So, I mean, Trump's behavior is going to cost the United States hundreds of billions of dollars going into the future. Hundreds of billions, not just mere billions, not even tens of billions. I think it's going to be hundreds of billions. I think like the Patriot missile system, which is very expensive, and they use it over there. But I think that's going to be replaced by European competing equipment. So it's kind of sad. But anyway, getting back to the tourism collapse, that's happening across the country. People in Europe are PO'd with us. Came across something that I thought was interesting. let me bring that up for you. Hold on. Yeah, listen to this.
Across Europe, shoppers are quietly making a statement. In Frankfurt, Paris, and Hamburg, baskets are lighter, and American brands are disappearing from the checkout lines. The European Central Bank says 26% of households are already avoiding US goods. Another 16% are cutting their spending altogether. And this is happening before Washington's new tariffs have even taken full effect. The changes may sound small, but they are telling. Wealthy households simply switch from Levi's to Hugo Boss, or from Apple to Samsung. For poorer households, the adjustment is harsher. They cut back entirely, especially on clothes, electronics, and leisure. Necessities remain, but discretion vanishes. Tariffs meant to punish exporters are reshaping daily life in Europe. This isn't the first time politics has invaded the shopping cart. In the 1930s, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the US deepened the Great Depression. In Trump's first term, a trade war with China rattled global supply chains. And Europeans remember the Iraq war boycotts, when American brands suddenly lost their appeal. Today, tariffs revive that tension, turning everyday shopping into a question of trust. The ECB warns that tariffs widen social divides. The rich adjust, the poor retreat, and the perception of higher prices feeds inflation's psychology. When families expect costs to keep climbing, they change.
So, now here's the thing about tariffs that you have to understand. There's only one country that is raising their tariffs like this, and that's the United States. You know, like right now, if you're reading the news, you're hearing about Canada developing all these trade relationships with all these other countries. Well, that's because, you know, the tariffs between Canada and Europe are low. Tariffs between Canada and Japan are low. The tariffs between other countries around the world are a lot lower than, they're normal. They haven't changed. Wherever they were a year, 2, 3 years ago, they're the same they are now. So, Philippines can trade with Brazil, and Brazil can trade with Spain, and et cetera, et cetera. But the one country that is kind of pulled back is the United States. Another way to look at it is this. When we put sanctions on Russia, Europe puts sanctions on it. What are those sanctions? What are they trying to do? Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to impede that country's ability to trade. With Russia, it means we're going to make it more difficult for them to sell their oil, maybe even impossible, or their natural gas, or their whatever resources. We're going to impose economic financial penalties on them for trying to do business. Well, what's going on with the United States? The United States is putting its tariffs out. Well, what are the tariffs? The tariffs are being put on the United States by itself. And what is a tariff? A tariff, or more precisely, how does a tariff act? A tariff basically is an imposition, a restriction, or an impediment to trade. If something is normally bought in a country and then brought to the United States with zero tariff, then it's bought at $100 and then it's sold at $100 plus a markup. But if it's $100 in the original country, now we put a $100 tariff on top. Now it has to sell for $200 plus a markup. That's an impediment to trade. So so Trump's tariffs are acting like we are sanctioning ourselves. So like if Putin was to put sanctions on us to damage our trade, that's what he'd be doing. I don't know. This is nuts. It's just plain nuts. But that's what's going on. And and like the lady mentioned in that one little bit that I showed you, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930, That was very, very critical or very important to the depth and the duration of the Great Depression. Well, the tariffs that Trump is doing are just as bad. And in one sense, they're a little bit worse than the Smoot-Hawley tariffs. At least the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, they were set and they were done. You know, in 1932, they knew what the tariffs were going to be. In 1933, they knew what the tariffs were going to be because they didn't change them. But with Trump, you have no idea what he's going to do. He's going to raise the tariffs. Oh, it's 50%? No, it's 125%. Oh, no, okay, we're going to give you a deal today. It's down to 35%. Oh, no, now it's down to 15%. No, now it's up to 75%. You know, he's governing by whimsy. And that is even worse than just merely having high tariffs, because now it puts in a level of risk that businesses just can't deal with. And so therefore, companies like General Motors, Deere, Ford, they're taking the manufacturing outside of the United States. So instead of protecting manufacturing in the United States, it is scaring it away. It is pushing it out of the country. There's a supply chain reason for that. We're not going to get into it right now. I'll go into and I'll explain that another time. But Trump is if Trump was doing his level best to damage and hurt and destroy the United States, he wouldn't be doing a better job than what he's doing right now. Because as much pain as we've had so far, and as much pain as people are having right now, it has not even begun to feel pain. It's going to get a lot worse. For one thing, people were saying, hey, if things don't change, there's only something like 33% of the American farmers could go out of business. That's going to happen. Right now, it's just a threat. It's just a fear. In 6 months, it won't be a fear. It'll be reality. So, and on that cheery note, sorry to be a downer, I'll let you go. Please do like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. I do need the help. And if you can, leave some comments and tell me what you thought of my discussion that I just gave. But also, if you have any questions or any ideas for other things you'd like to see addressed, I would be glad to help. Anyway, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I enjoy these things. I have fun with them. Hope you do too. And take care, and I hope to see you again. By the way, I'll be doing it again around 9-ish tomorrow. I tried to do it at 9 today. I got a little delayed because of technical issues, and I'm going to be. I'm getting a little bit better each day. I'm getting a little bit better at these. The technical issues for doing streaming is it's not as straightforward and as foolproof as I would like, because this fool is having some struggle, is struggling with it a little bit. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.